Nice, lead us off.
Okay, the first question says, what makes a Christian different from a good person?
I feel like, yeah, and I feel like the answer isn't always kind of obvious. It's like, okay, well, there's lots of good people in the world, but not everybody has Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's what differentiates it is your faith. Like, you have a hope in something as opposed to just being a good person, doing good works. It's like you actually put your faith and your hope in something.
Yeah, and I think it's like hard to define a good person because like you don't have like a purpose or like a motive for like why you're being good, and it's just like, oh, I want to be a good person because I think that's the right thing to do. Like, it's often hard to like know, are you really a good person, I guess?
Yeah, it's pretty much what you're saying. Like, it starts with a why. Like, you can only, we're all have the, we're all created in God's image. We're all going to do good acts, but it's like if we, for Christians, it's like we're doing all these things because like Christ told us to, and all that. So that's like, so that's why the reason we're doing good acts, I guess.
I think, well, yeah, it's a good point. You know, it's a really valid question. Like, to me, I think the biggest difference is like us Christians, we have hope because we're going to be in heaven someday, and good people, you know, non-Christians, they don't know if there's an afterlife or heaven or hell, right? They don't have that hope. Us Christians, we know someday when we die, we're going to be with Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one says, how am I supposed to trust church leaders when so many turn out to be really bad people? Which I think, like, at the end of the day, like, even church leaders are Christian, are human, even church leaders are human. And so at the end of the day, like, I think you always need to have certain boundaries when it comes to people, as you begin to trust them, because everyone has a filter to an extent. But I think that you can't be discouraged by different leaders and how they act, as discouraging as it can be. Like, you shouldn't let it turn you away from your faith or anything, because at the end of the day, they are human and we all are sinners.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I didn't grow up in the chapel or anything, so I like came from a smaller church where like a lot of the hiring, I guess, for like people to be in ministry like came out of like the population of the church. So there were a lot of people like in ministry that probably shouldn't have been there, and I think it's like I would get upset, you know, like watching my church go through all of these things, and then I was like, why is this like happening? Like, how am I? And then leaving the church, like, how are we gonna like find another church? What if it happens again? And then we just keep going through the same thing. It's like we have to remember, like, everybody, like, they're sinners too, and they deal with stuff too. But you know, not everybody in the world is gonna be like a bad person, or like there are people that should be called to ministry, and hopefully they'll find their way up to that.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know if any of you guys listen to the podcast, The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. It's pretty much just like this church that grew from one group, and then it's like 17,000, and it was this one guy, the head pastor. He started out with good motives, and then he was just turned out like all about himself and his brand, and then it came down to crash and burn. But everyone let it go on because they saw like the good things come. Like, people were getting baptized, more people were coming to the church, so they're like, okay, we can deal with this. The head pastor just going nuts sometimes, and because there was these good works. So I think it's just important to have accountability for the head pastor, for all the leaders of the church, just so don't get too self-centered or anything like that. Just everyone has accountability.
I think trusting people too has to come with like discernment. Like, you have to have discernment of like, is this church leader actually leading the way a church leader should be. Like, because I feel like a lot of times when you hear a lot of people talking about like why they left church or whatever, it a lot of times has to do with people within the church and not necessarily like people being hurt by people in the church and not even by God. It's like the thing that turned them away wasn't God, it was the people in the church. Like, so I think like you just have to like remember and put your trust in the Lord first as opposed to other people, I think. And then through that you'll get good discernment of what's a good leader, what's not a good leader, and I think that helps with your trust. So
Yeah, there's like, you see so many Christian bands and stuff like that, I feel like, or there was that leader or something from Hillsong who like basically like rejected Christ and then wrote this giant thing about why he didn't believe in the church anymore. And then there's another group, I think it's like a husband and a wife, Gungor, and they wrote a lot of really, really profound, like good music about Jesus. And then they like turned out to like reject their faith. And like a lot of the problems, if you like sit and you read through why they like have all these problems, it's like it's with the church and it's not with God. So I think ultimately like putting your trust in God and like hoping that he's gonna like, you know, pick the right people, like lead a church or something like that is just like, it's key.
Yeah, or even like not getting too like, because some people are really gifted with their sermons or with like even singing, and it's just like, okay, even though they can communicate well, it's like they still are human too, and it's just like, don't put your trust, and then like obviously you can trust these people, don't like give them like your complete trust, and definitely always stay on guard, and just as you know, everyone's human.
I'm just gonna read them all. Is there anything about God that scares you?
I mean, I feel like just the fact that like there's gonna be a judgment day, I feel like that would scare anyone.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're all sinners, we've all done things. So it's like the fact that we're gonna be judged by God, like I know that scares me. Like you want to make him proud, and it's like, am I doing what I should be doing to do that? Like, I think that's just like a scary thought.
Yeah.
Thinking that.
I think for me, like, I guess it's a scare and more like a control thing for me. But like, I'm a very anxious person, and like I like to have control. And I think like the scariest thing is like handing over control and like trusting his plan. Because like sometimes it's like, it's not the greatest, and you're like, okay, like God, like where are we going with this? So I think that's like the scariest thing for me.
I think it's good to have like a healthy fear of God. I think that most Christians do, like recognizing that like, you know, God is God, and you know, he's a lot better of a guy than like we are, and you know, he's like awesome and all powerful. So I think everybody should have like a healthy fear of God. But I don't know if I necessarily am like have like a legitimate fear of him or something that he does, but it does like, it doesn't bother me, but like I sometimes have to remind myself that like, okay, like God sees like the very like inner depths of like what you like, who you are and what you're thinking. So if I like find myself like talking bad about someone who's getting on my nerves, or like, you know, not following through with like my responsibilities like in my faith and stuff, and then I'm like, people are like, how are you doing in your faith? I'm like, I'm so great, I spend so much time with God, and it's like not true, but I can like almost feel him being like, you know, that's not true. Like, so I think that it does scare me in a way a little bit, just because it's like, then I'm like not being honest with him, but I am, but I'm like not, like I'm not like being upfront with God about like how I am. So
I have like similar fear to what you said about God just having complete control and like knowing what the future is going to be, kind of, and just having 100% trust in him. Like, even though you may have like a really rough day and you know you failed a test or you got fired, just knowing still like, oh, God knows what's going to happen and he's with you right there. It's kind of scary, but it's so refreshing too. Like, for instance, when I would have surgeries in the past due to medical problems, it was hard to think at the time like, oh, God's right here. But he is. He knows what's going to happen. He's going to take care of me. I can place all my trust in him, even though my body feels like crap or I'm going through surgery or something like that. So it's just having that full trust and knowing that he knows what's going to happen. He has a plan for you or for everyone, basically. So.
Yeah, I think my big fear is more just the fear of the unknown. I guess it's even, I don't know, there's just so much like that we don't know, and even you don't even know about God, and we obviously know he's loving, but pretty much you're saying that he's a God of justice, and Judgment Day is going to happen one day, so it's just like you want to, I feel like the little fear is definitely good for everyone, but there's just so much we don't know, and it's kind of, it's just crazy to think about. It's like a wormhole.
Yeah. Okay. Why does the church seem so divisive, judgmental, and hypocritical?
I think because it is.
I think anytime you have a group of people and that many, you start to see a divide because people walk different lives even while they're walking with Christ. Everyone's coming from such a different perspective. And I think we often forget that like other people have a different perspective, even if like you both are Christian, like you still live such different lives and you don't know what's going on in their life that has changed their perspective. And I think that's why it's so divisive, because people forget that like for all our similarities, we still have so many differences.
I forgot who told me this the other day, but we were playing that Cards Christians Like game, and it has like funny cards in it, and one of them was church splits, and like one person just didn't get it. They were like, that seems kind of stupid that like the church would split, and then we were like, no, it's like a real thing like in the Christian community. But I don't know why that made me think of that.
Yeah, I think anytime you have sinners together, like it's gonna end with like hypocritical, divisive, like judge, like it's gonna end that way, like because that's just our nature, is to be selfish and only think of ourselves. And it's like you put them all in a big group and they don't want to change their opinions or whatever. Like I don't know, like that's something I struggle with a lot, is like how hypocritical the church is, because it's just like, why can't we all just love each other? And like, who cares if you have different opinions? Like,
Exactly.
And I mean, it's not like I'm perfect and I don't struggle with that too, but it's just, especially in today's day and age with everything.
Everything's so polarized.
Everything is so divided, and it's like, that's not how we're called to live.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the church is almost known for doing now. Like,
And
so
so
many
loving,
people,
which is what we're supposed to be.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
We're known for dividing.
Well, it's like the different denominations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, once in a while you'll go to like a different church for a day or something. And, you know, I've heard in the past, you know, other churches judging other churches and stuff like that. And it just kind of like blows my mind to like, you know, you're saying all this stuff, and at the same time, you know, you're judging someone else or a different group of believers, kind of. It saddens, you know, me. Just think, you know, we're all called to love, and at the same time, you know, you're judging kind of, you know, selfishness.
Yeah, or even I think that a big issue is for the Christians that are living like the lukewarm life, where they're proclaiming or they're either, you know, like putting like a Bible verse on their Instagram, or they're doing something and they're proclaiming that they're Christian, but then they're living this lukewarm life, and then everyone's like, oh, but he or she's doing this, and they're saying they're a Christian, and then everyone's like this. Or even I remember Pastor Jerry was talking one time, like, if with someone that had like a bumper sticker of something like Christian, and he's like, I don't know if I can do that because you better be a really good driver or something.
Yeah, seriously. Okay. How much weight should prayer have in my daily decision making?
Could you say that again?
It says, how much weight should prayer have in my daily decision making? I mean, like, personally, I think, like, I'm not gonna, like, pray about, like, the coffee I'm getting, like, but, like, I think, like, there are decisions that, like, if it's affecting, like, your way of life kind of thing, it's always how I kind of discern it, like, if it's, like, something impacting my path in life, or, like, how I treat others, and, like, how others perceive me and the way I'm representing God, I think that's important to be praying about, but like, I don't think there's anything, like, if you want to pray about too much coffee, you can get,
yeah,
you can do that too, but yeah.
Yeah, I read a book, it's called Thinking Fast and Slow, and it talks about like majority of our decisions are made like the fast decisions. So I think that comes from, you know, just daily being in the Word, and just like, you know, your mind and your heart is just set in the scriptures and just in constant prayer. But then I think the big decisions, you know, you should pray over days and fast. And there's like, you know, how many huge decisions you have, but like those constant quick decisions are more of like, okay, where's your heart at?
Yeah,
really?
Exactly. Like if you're in the Word and you're really posturing yourself towards God, I feel like it's almost like second nature, some of that stuff, but when it isn't, I think like it's important to pray.
Yeah, as I think of like, you know, a big thing for me, it's like, okay, if I'm stubbing my toe, I might accidentally say a swear word before, my heart was changed. But now it's like, that's a big thing for me. I was like, okay, I stubbed my toe and I'm like not doing that. I'm like, okay, that's a good sign for me. And it's like, I'm not thinking when I stub my toes, boom, right away. And now it's like, okay, my heart's, it's a good heart check for me.
Now you're like, ouch, that really
yeah,
hurts.
I'm like, okay, that hurt a lot.
Okay. Can I have faith and still believe in science? If yes, is there science that contradicts Christianity?
I think that is such like a huge, there's such a huge stigma around Christianity, is that it like refutes science. It's like, no, God made science. Like, science is cool.
Yeah.
But I watched this documentary one time. I forgot what it was called. It was crazy. Like, it was so good. But one of the things that was in it was like, there are this enzyme or something. I forgot the name of it. Something that, like, I'm so not a science person. This is gonna sound so stupid. Something that makes up our DNA, and it's like some kind of structure in like the double helix, and it's like, it's a cross. It's like, isn't that coincidental? Like, I don't know about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you can look at science and like how complex it is and think it doesn't come from God. It's like, it's very, like, it's not an accident.